And welcome into the Wednesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How's life? How are things?
Things are great. How are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. I got a good night of sleep last night for the first night in a couple nights. I feel like a new, rejuvenated man, Rexrode.
Good, because I know that's been at times tough. I think that after you have a kid, that sleep totally changes for you. So I was worried that you said that you'd had some nights where it didn't, like you couldn't get to sleep and stuff like that. So how did you sleep? You just so tired that you just
Yeah, I think I was on the verge of death. So just went to sleep and body said, thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for going to sleep.
Sometimes that's what it takes, man.
I think so. That may be the strategy moving forward is just run yourself ragged until you almost die, and then you can go to sleep.
Yeah.
Why not?
Good idea.
Keyser, how we doing? What's going on? Did you sleep well last night, Nick?
Yes, I did. Thank you
good.
so much for asking.
That's good.
Yes, I usually have to ask Kristen that question.
That's good.
But anyway, so no, I'm doing great and looking forward to the rest of the day. Should be nice.
We have a lot to get into on the program today. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com will be with us later in the show. We'll get his thoughts on all things Tennessee Titans and the NFL draft. Some interesting comments from Barry Trotz on with Stillman and company yesterday. We'll get to some of that a little bit later in the program as well. Joe, I want to begin on the DeAndre Hopkins storyline that is making the rounds over the last couple of days. So for those who may have missed it, they do this Super Bowl media day thing, Joe. And quite frankly, the majority of it is probably the biggest waste of time of anything we as humans do throughout the course of a calendar year. I mean, it's awful. I mean, you got people up there, just harassing Travis Kelce pretty much and asking stupid questions about Taylor Swift. It's largely one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Every now and then you get some, good nuggets of information that somebody will let loose up there. And Nick Suss was out there, and DeAndre Hopkins was addressing the media. And the subject of his trade from Tennessee to Kansas City came up. And Hopkins threw out a couple of interesting lines about that. He said, quote, "When we lost to the Bills, there was a lot of stuff in the media saying that I got benched. And I'm not the type to go on social media and speak my truth because I feel like everything kind of always passes. But I did not get benched. That's the first time in my career where I was like, man, I don't belong out here on this field right now. We weren't winning. No plays were being called for me. Not that I'm a player that ever needs the ball, but I feel that I wanted to be included in something. So I took myself out of the game." So that was the comment from DeAndre Hopkins that has generated a lot of reaction. He went on to say that, he met with Rand Carthon the next day, and he said, Carthon could kind of see it in his eyes, and then facilitated the trade to Kansas City and said that, it meant a lot for the Titans to trade him to the Chiefs, and he thanked Rand Carthon and A.B. Adams Strunk for allowing that to happen. And without them, they wouldn't be here, or he wouldn't be there in this situation. So anyway, a lot of stuff from DeAndre Hopkins there. I felt like, Joe, like on our station yesterday and throughout a lot of Titans Twitter, this has been made into some federal issue now. I get like the comments of him taking himself out of the game are juicy. Like, I get that. I really do. But like, I guess where I come down on all this, Joe, is like we spent a whole lot of time talking about DeAndre Hopkins stuff yesterday. And I'm like, okay, well, he's not here anymore. And the other person involved in this story who both brought him in and then shipped him out is also not here anymore. So it's very difficult for me to care too much about this. That's where I kind of come down on this story. Joe, you can tell me why I'm wrong. Everybody apparently cares about this, but I was floored by how much we talked about DeAndre Hopkins yesterday.
Well, first of all, was the sound on that? Like, was that Nick Suss?
I believe so.
Did he tweet it?
Yes, and there's like this, the public address announcer in the background, and it just gets all jumbled. But yes, he did.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you did it the way you did it, which is to just read it, because I listened to Chase and Big Joe play this, and I had no idea what he said. I could make out like 3 words, and then Big Joe's like, "He's a quitter. I hate him," or whatever. So get him out of here. And it's like, Joe, he's gone.
He's been gone for a while.
So I'm glad I actually just looked at it and I read it, and that was because there was like way too much like background noise and stuff. I couldn't figure it out.
The audio's rough.
Yeah. I guess my only answer to you in terms of why are we talking about it is that it's February 5th and like we are talking about the quarterbacks, you know what I mean, every day, and it's 2 months or how long is it till the draft? My goodness,
Like
it's
2.5, almost 3 months still. 2.5 months of the draft.
Oh God. Oh, what a slog. Yeah, but I hear you. It's not. I mean, look, I guess you could look at it two ways. One, yeah, I agree. I don't like the idea of, man, this sucks. Take me out of the game. Obviously, no one likes to lose, and yeah, we did talk quite a bit last year about Hopkins at times. Like, man, he is just a non-factor. How all of a sudden is he a non-factor when when Will Levis and Hopkins had such a good connection year before? So on the one hand, it's not a great look. I guess on the other hand, I give him some credit for just being honest about that,
Yeah,
and talking about it. And on the third hand, I'm with you.
A lot of hands.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not like he said anything disrespectful to anybody or anything like that. He just admitted that he was basically just done. And frankly, I mean, if you're a fan of this team, and we talked about it last fall, how many times did we say, God, if you could find anything else to do, do it. I understand he gets paid a lot of money to play football, but that's how bad things got.
Well, and the other thing I think you got to keep in mind in this situation is like this was not some big, I think, secret that DeAndre Hopkins was going to get traded. Like at the time they lost the Buffalo game, and keep in mind, I think the Titans got out to a fast start against Buffalo. I think they scored the first touchdown of the game, and then all of a sudden you turn around and they're down by like 20, and it's like, okay, well this game's over. So they're well on their way to 1-5 at that time. They had beaten the Dolphins on that brutal Monday night game where we all had to watch Tyler Huntley play quarterback. And that was it. That was the one win that they had to that point. We had been talking heading into the Buffalo game, after the Indianapolis game, about DeAndre Hopkins and how much longer he was going to be with the Tennessee Titans. So again, I'm not sitting here like excusing him taking himself out of the game. I don't love that. Like you're on the team, you're on the field. You got to sit there and take the lump just like everybody else does. So I get that part of it. But like this is not some big secret that he was going to be moved at that point. Like he was the one guy, Joe, that felt like, he had a way out of this. Like he was going to be moved at some point. So like it was not a surprise when DeAndre Hopkins got traded when he did. We were talking about that. We were talking about what the compensation was going to look like. And quite frankly, we were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs as the probable destination like 3 weeks before it actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're going to be mad at DeAndre Hopkins for something, be mad that he also wasn't very good there, and so you only get a fifth instead of a fourth.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the thing is like I thought, it was such a mess here. How do you evaluate anybody? I figured he's going to go there. They are bereft of playmakers. He's going to be perfect with Mahomes and just be a possession guy who moves the chains all day, and it'll be great. And he basically was a non-factor, or he was an increasingly less of a factor. So
you'll probably catch game winner in the Super Bowl though. So just be ready for
that. Well,
that.
that's true. Yeah. And then, or else he'll catch like the go-ahead touchdown with a minute left, and then AJ Brown will send it to overtime with his own touchdown. How about that?
Congrats, Titans fans.
Yeah, and then they'll be the two guys that are sent out for the coin toss in overtime. But yeah, I mean, so first of all, I heard Chase and Big Joe talking about it, and again, I was like, man, I wonder what he said there in that clip they just played. What was the other, like, what catch me up on what everybody was saying about this?
Well, it's just like, I think him quitting on the team, quote unquote, is the main thing about this. Now, I will say I heard some Titans fans, and this is an interesting point to bring up. In those comments from Hopkins, he's talking about how, number one, they're not winning, which we all saw, but number two, like no plays are getting called for him is also something that he said there. So it's like, all right, well, if you're Brian Callahan, why are you not calling plays for DeAndre Hopkins? Like, why is he not getting the ball? Was the other part of this that Titans fans are worried about in terms of like, does Brian? It's not just another log on the fire, Joe. Of like, does Brian Callahan know what he's doing and know how to use the weapons that he has offensively? Which again, Joe, would be one thing had he gone to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes and totally lit it up. But he's basically been a non-factor there, save for about 1.5 games.
Yeah, like I think that this year, one thing you can take away from it is that he diminished as a player, right?
Yeah.
As bad as the Titans were, and you figure, well, how would you even know? I mean, I think that you have to conclude that based on all the evidence. So, I mean, quitting on the team, that sounds like 2 hours of Stillbilly, but he's on Radio Row, so he's got guests, or else it would have been 2 hours of Stillbilly,
yeah,
right?
He talked about it.
Was he angry, screaming?
He was angry. Yeah, he was angry. But then Mad Dog
Attaboy.
Russo came on the show later, and he was real happy after that. He was fine.
No, I heard that.
Yeah, no, Jared, I don't know. You're going to get a baseball team too. You're going to get a baseball team too. And I promise you, Jared. Okay? It's going to happen, Jared. I got to tell Stephen A. that Nashville going to get a baseball team too.
It was good to know that Mad Dog Russo thinks that the Titans and the Jags are the two most irrelevant franchises in the league. Good for him to point that out.
It was nice that he didn't just isolate the Titans. He had to include
Duval.
I like your Mad Dog Russo voice. Very underrated. We got to keep that going. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We'll take your reaction to the DeAndre Hopkins discussion. We will also get into the Predators later this hour. Some comments from Barry Trotz on Stilly's show yesterday as well that are interesting as they look ahead here. All that coming up this hour. More of your thoughts to get to coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. With the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Let's head to our text line. Mo texting in says, if Hopkins is complaining about targets, he's only got one target for 11 yards so far in this playoffs. That's kind of like what I'm saying. Like, I understand Titans were 1-5. He wasn't getting the ball. They were getting killed in that game. So, like, the human part of me understands it. I don't love that he took himself out of the game. I recognize that. But again, like, he had the one game, I think, in Kansas City. I think they were playing Tampa, where he had like 8 catches for almost 90 yards and a touchdown in that game. And I watched that game, Joe, and was like, oh boy, this is exactly what I thought would happen. This is Hopkins shows up in Kansas City, and all of a sudden he turns into this 1,000-yard receiver again, and Mahomes unlocks him. And really, since then, he's not done hardly anything in Kansas City. So, we'll see what he does in the Super Bowl. Maybe he ends up making a huge play or two for them to catapult them to a championship. I have no idea. But the bottom line is, I think you're exactly right of what you laid out there last time. He's diminished as a player. And quite frankly, like from a Titans perspective, he's gone. Rand Carthon's gone. I just don't care. Like, I don't care about this story at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do. If you're going to want to take it to Callahan, I do think that it's too bad. It's too bad that as much as you might hate watching him as a Titans fan light it up, your team stunk with him, stunk without him. So that was going to happen. It's too bad he couldn't, reach the markers to get that 4th round pick. But yeah, I do think that the Kansas City experience gives more of a pass to Brian Callahan on why he wasn't more involved. I mean, it's interesting because Hopkins and Boyd, neither of them really made an impact. I mean, basically, it turned out to be that obviously Ridley finally found his footing. And then, of course, we know the consistent excellence of NWI. And other than that, pretty disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, the Titans receiving core, even to start the year. Now Hopkins got hurt in camp, and you wonder, like, how much that was slowing him down to begin the year. Well, it turns out, Joe, like, I think that may just be what he is right now. Like, he's gotten older, and he's not the same guy that he used to be. And quite frankly, like, I still, even though it ended this way and he ended up taking himself out of the game and they moved on from him and sent him to Kansas City, like, I still think it was a good signing for them. Like, he came in their first year and he was really good. He gave them over 1,000 yards. He caught 75 balls on a team that wasn't very good. Like, we talked about the veteran receivers that have come in here and that have not worked. He did. Like, he came in here and he was a good player for them for a year. And then the entire wheel fell off the entire operation this past year, him included. Like, he wasn't very good. The entire operation offensively wasn't very good. And that's how they ended up 3-14 with the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah. And look, I'll be honest, like, I always appreciated the guy because I thought that he was, I just thought he was pretty straightforward, pretty much a straight shooter. Didn't always love to talk a lot, but he when he talked, he usually, of course, he also did like some other people. I said like Levis is gonna be great and all that stuff, but I thought he was an honest voice, and hey, and he brought this on himself. This just telling the story of him pulling himself out of a game. He didn't have to do that, he did it. So. Again, it's not, I would not advise it. I don't approve of it. I think that's pretty weak. I mean, you go out and do your job and earn your large paycheck, but the fact that he talked about it, you don't see that too often.
You do not. And really, I mean, the Callahan part of this is why I think it's so important for them to be aggressive at receiver, whether that's T. Higgins this offseason or a draft. Like, they've got to get that room bolstered at wide receiver. Like, they're regardless of who the next quarterback is, but particularly if it's a young quarterback, they got to get that wide receiver room ready to go. You brought it up. Like, Hopkins was disappointing this last year. I mean, they didn't get hardly anything from Tyler Boyd. He made a play here or there, but you have Ridley, we'll see what happens with NWI. But it's been a while since this Titans receiving room as a whole has been anywhere near good enough of a threat. And I think in order to find out more about what you've got in Brian Callahan and his offensive scheme and whether or not he's the right guy for the job. I mean, ultimately the wins and losses are going to determine that when you're the head coach. But offensively, like, let's get some actual weapons in here and see if you look like you got a clue on the offensive side of the ball and have a better evaluation of things that way.
Yeah. And also get a quarterback.
Well, that'd be nice.
Quarterback would help you with that. Yeah. Like someone on the text line said, well, how do you even know, well, that's what I thought last year. Levis was struggling so much, and then Rudolph was marginally better. So we're about to see, the true Hopkins in Kansas City. And turns out that, that didn't turn out. Again, Kelsey got going, Worthy got going. I mean, they have other guys. They have a bunch of guys. It just, so some of it is other guys playing better for sure. But yeah, the Titans, what the Titans do, what they have as a passing game. I mean, look, it's the same thing they do in Cincinnati, basically, which works great when you have Burrow throwing to Chase and Higgins.
Right.
Titans aren't going to have that next year, but can they have something in between what they had last year and what like the Bengals have?
I'm sure about that. I mean, according to some headlines I've seen out there, Brian Callahan has compared Shedeur Sanders to Joe Burrow.
Oh, that's true. And then if they sign Higgins,
yeah, and you got it
we'll
right
just
there.
We'll just say Ridley's Jamar Chase, and
yeah,
there you go.
There we go.
Let Callahan cook.
Let's head back to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in David to the program. David, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Enjoy the show. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying here. Here's my comment and question. Do we know when you draft young talent, you got to bring them in, you got to develop them, get them ready? Here's my question. What do we do to retain veteran talent? It just seems like, we lose these guys, whether it's Henry or D-Hop or somebody, and they go on and they do pretty good in other places. And I'm thinking, what can we be doing? What can Mangione and Callahan be doing better to retain and maintain veteran capabilities? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks. Hope you have a good day.
Well, I think number one, Joe, you got to have better veteran talent. Like Derrick Henry was here for a long time. They did retain him.
He did have a second deal.
Right. Like he got a second deal here and he was here for a while. And then it just reached a point where it just made, I think, sense for both sides to move on. And particularly from Derrick Henry's side, it's worked out very well since he's done so in Baltimore. Like Hopkins gave him a good year, but even Hopkins, I think, Joe, when he originally signed with the Titans, that it kind of showed how the league viewed him, right? Like he was looking for a big payday and he didn't get it. And he had the opportunity to go to Kansas City before he signed with the Titans, and they just didn't offer him enough money in his eyes. Like the Titans offered him the best deal, and he ended up coming to the Titans, having a pretty good year in year one, and then the trade came after that. So, like beyond that, how do you retain some of your talent? Well, Derrick Henry was here for a while. A.J. Brown, don't trade him. That's how you retain that talent, is you don't trade him and send him to Philadelphia Eagles. Like that, you pay a guy when they show earlier in their career, it's particularly at a premium position, that they're a pretty darn good player in the NFL. And the other problem with that, Joe, is you got to draft better so you have an opportunity to retain more good players as their career develops, which that's not happened anywhere near enough lately as well.
Right. I mean, when they had a run of bringing in good players, they got second deals for Simmons, Landry, Lewan, Byard, Hooker,
Henry.
Yep. Right. So, I mean, Tannehill, got another deal. So, they've had guys where it's a matter of having good players that you want to give a second deal to. So, and it is harder to, when you're bad, then it's also probably harder to keep guys. Guys are probably more, feeling like Myles Garrett demanding a trade, get me the hell out of Cleveland.
Well, they've not been perfect in that area either, by the way. I mean, look, Jack Conklin, they did not give a second deal to. He was a draft pick.
And just imagine if they never were out there trying to draft right tackles.
Yeah,
starting with the 2020 draft, and how different history might be for this franchise.
Yeah, it's a huge question. And then, some of it is also coming down to like your draft picks weren't good enough, right? Like, Corey Davis probably didn't need a second deal here. Rashaan Evans definitely didn't need a second deal here. Like, you got to draft better, and then you retain some of these guys.
And by the way, thanks for the call, David. Did he just call Borgonzi Eric Mangione, the former Jets legendary coach? Did I hear that correctly?
I think that's Eric Mangini. So that would also.
Oh yeah. So Mangione. Who is Mangione?
Not sure, but it is Borgonzi. That I would like.
Who's the most famous Mangione is what I want to know. Someone help us out, text line.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Barry Trotz with some interesting comments yesterday on Stillman and Company about the realization that he's come to in this season and maybe what needs to be fixed as they move forward. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
we talked last week about, hey, if this team gets going, you may look to do what you did last year as opposed to blow something up or send off pieces or whatever. With the 3 losses in a row since we last talked, has that kind of made the decision for you about the prospects of this year?
Yeah, no, it has. It has. We started doing some of our work a little bit early. Obviously with the Justin Barron trade, we felt that was the right move. The Noonan trade, we felt that was the right move. So we sort of were preparing for it, but at the same time trying to use some young players that we will go forward with. So, I'm very aware of where we are, and if the right deal comes our way, then we'll be a seller more than a buyer.
So that's Barry Trotz yesterday on with Stillman and company. And Joe, I mean, no surprise there. We talked about this. When you win 5 games in a row, you allow yourself, I think, if you're a fan, a member of the organization, to look at it and say, okay, could you have something here? Like we talked about, could you keep winning and get the deficit down to, 7 or 8 points by the time the break comes around here, which starts after Saturday's game, and you can make things interesting down the stretch. Well, they've lost 5 in a row since then. They're at 43 points. And as we stand here today, they're 16 points out of a playoff spot. So they're not making it. Like, they're not making the playoffs. I think everybody knows that now at this point. We've known it for a while, but I think it's now been cemented. And you heard Barry Trotz say it there. He knows what he's doing at the deadline. Like, they're going to sell off some pieces here. Now, he also said later in that interview, Joe, that, a lot of trades have already started to happen in the NHL. He kind of anticipates that the moves that he will make will probably come closer to the trading deadline than this week. Now, you can never say never in the NHL, but as of now, Trotz anticipates the moves that they will make probably will come a little bit closer to the actual deadline. So, last week there was some reaction to his interview, Joe, when he said, if they win some games here, then maybe I'll do what I did last year. And, you brought in Anthony Beauvillier and those pieces last year, Jason Zucker, and kind of added around the fringe and gave up some late round picks to do it. I think you can pretty much go ahead and cross that stuff off the list, and they're going to be selling here relatively soon.
Yeah. By the way, Zucker doing pretty well.
He is.
Yeah. We talked about him as a guy.
Team. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about him as a guy who might have been worthwhile. Increasingly I'm seeing, Preds fans very angry or upset with Trotz. It's gotten to that. We've gotten to that point, which I understand. Also, I still have to tip the cap to his honesty. Like, basically, yep, that's true. I mean, how many GMs would do that, and just be like an open book on what they're thinking?
Yeah.
I don't know that it helps. Like, I don't think it helps or hurts. I don't know that it helps or hurts the Preds at all. But it's just for our sake. I appreciate it.
Well, there's another one that we're going to get to here in a minute that continues to do that around the NHL. That's making things very interesting. But yes, your point is well taken.
Yeah, but look, it's. I mean, it's. You think about if you're in that room right now, and I'm not feeling a shred of sympathy. They're bad. They're losing, bad, disappointing team. But it's February 4th, and your GM just publicly said, "Yep. Pack it up, boys," and some of you are going to be sold here pretty soon. I mean, again, if you're in that room, you have to know it anyway, but now there's just no question about it.
Yeah, and it's the way it should be. Like, when you're this far out of a playoff spot, you've got to do what you've got to do if you're Barry Trotz in the organization to fix it. And that's the question. How do you fix this moving forward? And by moving forward, I mean next year. Because I don't think anybody, Joe, is signing up if you're a Predators fan for, well, this is just what they are. They're bad now. Like, that's not what this was supposed to be when you signed these contracts with Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea. Like, you were trying to, bring along some of your young guys, but you're also trying to compete, right? Like, they signed those guys, and Barry Trotz has said this, with the idea that they could be a threat. Well, right now, they're not a threat. And how close to, is the question I threw out there the other day on the show, is this a 1-year thing where everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong? or is this a fundamental flaw with their roster, their process, their coaching staff, whatever the case may be? Like that's what they got to figure out here over the next few weeks, and as they get into the offseason. What's also interesting here is how do you go about fixing it? Like if you're Barry Trotz and the Predators and you're looking at your roster right now, we've talked about this. I don't think a lot of your core that's locked into long-term deals, and many of which who have trade protection, is going to go anywhere. Now, the one thing on the trade protection stuff, Joe, that I'll say, this has been an interesting year in the NHL as it relates to players who have trade protection. You know, it's not like you can't move them and get out of it. Like earlier this year with the Rangers, Jacob Trouba had a full no trade clause, right? And they basically said, you're not going to play for us anymore. We know you. We know what your contract says. Like we will put you on waivers and you're not going to play. And it eventually led to a trade with him that sent him to Anaheim. Right now, I mentioned another general manager / president of hockey operations, which is what this guy is, who's just kind of airing out everything publicly. Like we talked about Vancouver last week with the Pedersen, JT Miller stuff and how Jim Rutherford went out there and basically just aired out everybody's laundry in public. Well, they're doing it again right now. Carson Soucy, who is a defenseman for them, has a no trade clause, and they have made it known that he is available. Like he is available for trade. And Elliot Friedman's put that out there yesterday. Pierre LeBrun's put that out there. They're getting that from somewhere, and I think they're getting it from Jim Rutherford. And what I think it does is, hey, we know you've got a no trade clause. We would really love to move you, and we're going to put pressure on you to move. We're going to make it publicly known that we do not want you here anymore. And I'm really interested to see how this goes. Like Soucy in particular, he's really struggling this year, and they just made some moves to bring in some other defensemen. So they're reshaping their blue line there. But it's a really interesting time in the league right now, Joe, with some of these executives and teams handing out these no trade clauses and then coming up with either some creative ways to get around it or just putting all the pressure on the player and basically saying, yeah, we don't want you here anymore, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you're not here, even though you have the no trade clause.
Yeah, we got yelled at on the text line the other day for a bit, basically, I guess, dismissing some possible moves because of no trade clauses. I mean, typically no trade clauses hold. Right? I mean, there isn't a ton of like busting through no trade clauses, but there are guys who will waive them. And the thing is, I mean, I don't really like the public pressure thing with that, because to me, it's like you'd rather just work it out and just talk through it and be on the same page. If your player's struggling, or if it's like, hey, we need to move you. I mean, what about, obviously some players have a list and things. There's different levels of these things,
yeah.
But yeah, obviously, look, if it's going that badly for you at a place, what most players probably would at least consider, right? I mean, you're going to just be like, nope, screw you. I got an NTC and I'm just going to, make life miserable for you. I mean, usually if that's the case, if things are going that way for the team and or the individual, then they want a new start anyway.
Well, and here's how I think that becomes a little bit more complicated for the Predators. The age factors into this too. Like Brady Shea right now. Brady Shea's not old, but Brady Shea's 30, and he's really struggled this year. He's in the first year of a 7-year deal. So, like looking ahead to the offseason or next season, do you think somebody right now, based on the season that he just had, is going to want to trade for the remaining 6 years of that contract? No, they're not.
The no trade clause is the rest of the league not wanting you.
Right, exactly. Well, and then like there's Stamkos and Marchessault, right? Like those guys, they've not been horrible this year. They're having worse years than they did last year when they both scored 40 goals. And Stamkos right now is on pace to have his worst productive season since basically like his rookie year. So he's 35, I think, in 2 days. So are you taking that contract if you're another team right now? Probably not. Now the interesting guys, and let me make this very clear before I say it. Like, I don't think this is going to have even remotely a chance of happening. But like, if you wanted to move somebody with a no trade clause, I mean, it would probably have to be Roman Yossi or Philip Forsberg, right? Like both those guys have no trade clauses, and those guys would garner interest around the league. I just don't think the Predators are going to want to do that. And what's the return that you could get for those guys where you'd be like, yeah, we feel good about next year's team getting rid of one of those two guys. So, like as far as it relates to the Predators, it's not impossible to move on from no trade clauses, but I think with the way that theirs are structured right now, it makes it pretty darn hard.
Right. It would be interesting with either of those two. I mean, in terms of like if I mean, it's hard for me to imagine. I think obviously both of them want to or been here. I've been entrenched here for a long time, but also it does look. I mean, right now it doesn't look great moving ahead. Like if either of them had a chance to go to a true, contending team, well, how would that? What would the appetite be?
Yeah, I don't know. And do the Predators have like any consideration of that? My guess is no. Like I think they, Yossi kind of feels like a lifer, and Forsberg does too. Like Forsberg's different than I think everybody. Like even Yossi right now, I think it's a fair question to ask: how much longer does Yossi have of being, an elite player? Like right now, he's had a down year this year. By his standards, Roman Yossi has had a down season this year. He's 34. He will be 35 on June 1st. So, like, I think it's probably fair to say, Joe, that his best days are probably behind him. Like, doesn't mean he's a bad player. Doesn't mean he can't still be a really, really good defenseman. But at 35 coming up, like, how many people are playing their best hockey of their career at age 35? It just doesn't happen very often. Forsberg, what is he, 31? So I think he's still got some time left for him in his prime. And while he's having a down year compared to what he did last year, like I think we're seeing it with the way he's played over the last month, he's still capable of being an elite player. Like he's the one guy that I think's kind of different in this discussion.
Agree. There's a very good question on the text line that I think, along with what we're getting to next, that we should address.
We will do that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More your thoughts on the Predators to get to next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
But we're going to need better play by our whole team. I mean, our top guys got to carry us. When our top guys are going, I think we won 5, 6 in a row. When they're not going, I mean, we don't want to have much of a chance to win most nights. So, but what concerns me more than anything is that we've got to find ways to create a little bit more of an identity. Last year we were pretty relentless. That was our identity. This year we have had a hard time getting to whatever that identity is. That concerns me.
That's Barry Trotz yesterday on Stillman and Company. Says concerned about really having a hard time this year forging an identity and what that could mean for them moving forward. Taking your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025. Joe, a question you want to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Yes, and I think, I think this is not. I've seen this a little bit, but I think this was well stated. Now, of course, I'm sitting here saying, okay, where can I find it? Yes, here we go. Unnamed texter. Put your names on these people. Put your names on the text. Put your names on your little contact there. Then we know what your name is. But texter says, if we were comparing Barry and Rand on GM performance, how could we not go after Barry like we did Rand? People like Stillman put Trotz up on a pedestal, among many others, at 102.5. Why not the same outrage? I'd argue both performances are similar. I will quickly, couple things, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say, Robbie. If I can cough through this and actually speak. A couple differences. One, with Trotz, let's face it, Trotz was a legendary and beloved coach here and has had a high level of success on his own, granted in a different job, but that is different than Rand, right? And he's also a guy who, again, is a Preds personality and legend, unlike Rand coming in new. But look, I think right now, as you look at this team, I think it's fair to ask that question. I think it's fair to bring it up. I think it's fair to really wonder if Trotz knows what he's doing and if he has screwed this up completely. And now, look, we also have to be honest. And I'm going to raise my hand and say I was like all in last summer. Love these moves. Now we did, however. So we can't, we're second guessing. We did not first guess any of that. Now we did first guess UC Saros.
Yeah.
I believe both of us did, right? And not to give him the big deal. There were some warning signs there, and that may end up being the biggest mistake of all of this. But no, I think it's fair. But you do have to. I mean, they're not exactly apples to apples as a comparison either.
Well, also, so Rand Carthon had 2 years as a general manager. The Titans, I think, fell flat on their face this year and underachieved. And the year before that, they were not a good team. And what did they finish? 6-11. So they missed out on the playoffs both the years and were not really close to being competitive. Well, year one of Trotz as a GM, they overachieved and made the playoffs. So it is a different discussion timeline wise from that point too. Now, granted, this year they have dramatically underachieved. Like, it is the worst season in the history of this franchise, at least in terms of expectation and result, right? Like, it's by far, I don't think it's close. It's by far the most disappointing season that they've had. So look, I threw the question out there the other day. Like, if you're Bill Haslam, which is also like really when you get down to it, what matters in this, like, how are you feeling about things right now? What's your viewpoint on Trotz and Brunette this year? And look, I heard the guys on DVD having a good discussion about this yesterday. Like, there are clearly some adjustments that have to be made here. You heard Trotz talking about, the lack of an identity that they've been able to find. Okay. Well, how do you find that next year? And do you have the coach right now that's gonna forge that? Like, do you have to change the way that you play? I think the answer is yes. Like, it's clear right now, Joe, that what they're trying to do with this group is not working right now. So one of two things have to happen there, in my opinion. Either, number one, with the current coaching staff that you've got in place, Joe, you've got to make some tweaks and you've got to make some adjustments and you've got to tinker with the way that you're trying to attack this thing next year. Or number two, you've got to find another coach that is a better fit for this team, this system, and where they are right now. I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. Like Trotz said yesterday in his interview, like you can forget about Andrew Burnett being fired this year. I talked about that the other day. To me, it makes no sense to do that now at this point anyway. Now, at the end of the year, I think they're going to take a look at everything. Like, I can't guarantee that Andrew Burnett's going to be back next year. And I stand by what I said the other day. Even if he is, I think the leash is going to be pretty short next year to start the season.
Yeah, Trotz. I mean, the quote I think was he's safe the rest of this year for sure.
Yeah,
which again is just appreciate the honesty. And Keith, look, Keith is right on this topic too. He says also Barry's out there in the media talking, being visible, whereas Rand did not. So two parts of that. One, which doesn't really matter, shouldn't really matter. Yes, for us, media's sake, obviously we like that a lot better. He's giving you play-by-play of what's happening, which is totally different than Rand. But that also, for the fan perspective, is where it matters, right? Yeah. I mean, you feel like you feel like someone's out there talking to you, whereas Titans organization does not do that at all. So that does give you more. I think it does give you more public leeway if you're going to be like that. But Dean asked, I think it's Dean here, asked a question. I had never thought about this. Has an organization ever fired the same person as both coach and GM?
Well, I don't know how many organizations have had the same person as coach and GM, so I don't know what the answer.
And
I'm
not counting, and we're not counting like Belichick or whatever.
Right.
Like actually, like two different tenures. One as coach, one as GM. You'd have to probably go way back or something, right?
Yeah, I would assume you'd have to go way back. Now, one thing, there's one on here that says Trotz inherited a better situation than Rand Carthon. I don't know that I agree with that. Like, think about where this team was when he took over. They had just sold off all these pieces. They had fired a coach, and he was responsible for hiring the new coach who had been a head coach on an interim basis before, but had never been like a full-time NHL head coach. You know, Rand Carthon still had Ryan Tannehill on the team, still had Derrick Henry on the team, still had Mike Vrabel, who 2 years prior had won NFL Coach of the Year. Like, neither one of them had great situations that they inherited because, look, we've talked about the Titans roster and the downturn that was on after John Robinson. But I don't know that it was like clearly some better situation that Barry Trotz inherited. That roster was in pretty rough shape when he took over, and he went out that summer and brought in Nyquist and O'Reilly and these guys, and it worked out well. But the expectations for that team to be bad heading into that year were there for a reason. The roster was not good.
Yeah. The Titans nosedived once Rand got the job. I'm not saying it's because of him, but that's just what happened. And there were a lot of things that had led up to that were not on him, right?
Right.
But still, like you said, I mean, at that point, they had been, pretty good still. They looked like they were still competitive. Also, how much do you I think Trotz gets some credit, had some involvement in the sell-off too, right?
Yes.
I mean, he was basically transitioning, and so we all, applauded Poyle for going out and dropping the mic, but Trotz also had something to do with that.
I mean, this texter is asking about picking, Trotz got to pick his coach, had money and picks. I mean, what did Rand Carthon do? Rand Carthon got to pick his coach and had a ton of money spent last offseason too. Like, I don't think the situation is really all that much different that the two had to deal with.
No, again, the hard part for me is singling him out with the failures, but they had failure and they absolutely had opportunity to be better. And then they said they were going to be better, and then they weren't at all.
And again, like, I talk about, the first year they overachieved, they made the playoffs, and you felt like everything was going well. I think Trotz and everybody involved gets credit with that. It has been a massive failure this year. So he gets blamed for that too. Like, if you're a Predators fan right now and you're really concerned with the GM coach combo and where this is headed right now, it's very difficult for me to find blame in that for you right now. Like, the results, this is a results-based business, and they are what they are. And with the age of the forward core specifically right now, I think it's fair to be concerned that this is not just a one-year thing. They could be just on the wrong side of this right now. And man, what a disappointment that would be if it works out that way, Joe, given the excitement level of what it was heading into this year. If it turns into just 2 straight years of just non-competitive hockey.
Nah, I mean, it's like, you get like you get so excited, you get the bow on this awesome bike that you wanted for Christmas, and then you take it out for a ride, and it just completely turns to dust as you're riding it. I don't know. That's not a very good analogy, but I'm trying to think of something like that. Jason Goodlettsville has a good idea. Just give him the trip to Vegas back.
Just come
I don't
full
think
circle.
U2's playing anymore, but yeah, just send him out there randomly instead of playing a game. Send him out to Vegas.
Let's call YouTube. Like, hey, can you guys schedule a concert at the Sphere real quick? We're gonna
Yeah.
go.
There's somebody playing out there, I'm sure.
We're gonna attend front row. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. There was a statement put out from the National Football League yesterday that has driven Joe Rexrode bananas. We'll get into it coming up next. Robby and Rexrode 1025, 1063, the game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. We will have Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us a little bit later in the program as well. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. So looking forward to that conversation with PK coming up here in the program, who is also weighing in right now on our NHL discussion as well. So PK heavily involved in the program right now. Joe Rexrode, by the way, Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Joe Rexrode, a statement from the National Football League, and in particular, the NFL Referees Association that was put out there yesterday that has really chapped you as we sit here today on this Wednesday morning. Scott Green, who is the executive director of the NFL Referees Association, put this statement out there yesterday. As we know, there's a lot of yelling and screaming right now about Kansas City and getting back to the Super Bowl and how they get every call and the officials love Kansas City and all those things. Roger Goodell's been asked about it this week. There was a very long statement that the NFL Referees Association put out there, and one of the key takeaways from it, Joe, is, quote, "It is insulting and preposterous to hear conspiracy theories that somehow 17 officiating crews consisting of 138 officials are colluding to assist one team." One of the takeaways from that statement that was released. Joe, your thoughts on the NFL Referees Association and Scott Green putting out this statement yesterday from the National Football League?
Well, it starts with the press conference with Roger Goodell.
Yes.
And maybe, I don't know if you know, or maybe PK knows, I don't even know who asked the question, but about the, favoritism for the Chiefs, which Goodell called, quote, a ridiculous theory. I mean, I'm all for dunking on Roger Goodell, but I think it's embarrassing he was asked that. I really do. I think it's embarrassing. And then, for the officials to come out with this statement, calling Goodell spot on with that. And, like you said, you just read one of the key parts of the statement there from Scott Green. I just are we actually going to do this? We're going to let idiotic, conspiracy crap become a primary story. I mean, it was a bad call. It's unfortunate that Josh Allen, I think, looked like he got it, and he should have been, one official spotted it terribly, and they went with that one, and they didn't overturn it. And, then there was a call in the Texans game that was bad. Then Will Anderson, has the quote after the game, which is, quote, "We knew it was going to be us versus the refs going to this game." So fine. So sore losers will say sore loser, bitchy ass stuff like that. Okay. Does anybody actually, with a brain, actually think that the league is conspiring to help the Chiefs? Listen, here's the concern. The concern is that gamblers or someone, who can benefit from that is going to get to unofficial. And that is absolutely a real concern. It's a real concern in professional sports. It's a real concern in college sports.
By the way, it's happening right now in Major League Baseball. There's a story that came out yesterday of umpire Pat Hoberg for sharing legal sports betting accounts with a friend who was betting on baseball. So that is a real concern across sports.
And it's happening in the NBA. Now that's player performance. But again, that aspect of it, the gambling aspect of it, I mean, look, it goes back. There was a Big Ten official 15 years ago. Hold on. Excuse me. This has got me all riled up. Thank you. So that's real. Okay. If you think that an entire officiating crew, again, if you're going to try to pull something off that anybody would logically think that they could get an entire crew to do this or that for them, think about how stupid that is. If you are the NFL, especially the NFL, but really any of these pro sports leagues or college sport, that's in charge of these sports that are incredibly lucrative. The NFL at the top of the pyramid for sure. Let's just take the NFL. It is destroying everybody else. Again, I'll say again, if the freaking Jaguars and Cardinals were in the Super Bowl this year, that's the worst case scenario for the TV people. Who cares? It's still the highest rated TV show by far in the world. Doesn't freaking matter. The biggest thing that would screw you over would be that your product does not have integrity. So there's no logic whatsoever to the idea that the league would want this or that to happen. I mean, I go back to being as a kid arguing with people like, oh yeah, the New York and LA gonna be like, well, if these are conspiracies, then why aren't all these series going 7 games? It's dumb. The concern is, again, individuals being compromised like Tim Donaghy in the NBA. That's real. This league-wide conspiracy crap, think about how dumb. Think about the return on investment and the potential risk and loss if you actually ran one of these leagues. It's insane to think about, but here we are.
Well, I'm with you on all that, but there's one more part of this that makes all this even more of a stupid conversation in my mind than that. Like, because look, if I'm an NFL fan, like, I can obviously Patrick Mahomes is good for business, right? We all realize that. Patrick Mahomes is good for business. He's in a pursuit at this point to be one of the greatest of all time. He's chasing Tom Brady, all those things. So, like, if you wanted to believe that there's some sort of favoritism to him and the Chiefs because of that, I think it's dumb, but there are fans that I think wholeheartedly believe that. Here's the part of this that I always get back to in these conversations that make this really stupid. For the league to have a conspiracy. Well, there are 31 other teams and 31 other owners. Do you think that there's like this big giant conspiracy and the 31 other teams and owners are just like, well, yep, I guess we're just okay with Kansas City benefiting all these things again? Like, do you not think that somebody along the way that's high up with one of these teams would like catch wind of that and be, it would be made public? Like, it boggles my mind how everybody's like, well, the league is clearly they want Kansas City to win, and everybody else
that
in the
huge
league,
market,
everybody else in the league
Kansas
is
City.
just though. But like even beyond the market stuff, like I get the player stuff. But like even everybody else in the league is just okay with it. They're like, yeah, cool. That's fine. Kansas City can win again.
Or that Goodell in the league office is going rogue on the other 31. You know how many of them could have him killed and like shot to like Venus? I mean, it's absolutely idiotic. And I knew there'd be pushback. There's people. And again, I'm sorry, man. This is a little bit of an IQ test. Look, here's a text says there's got to be some concern when they get calls every week. If you don't believe Mahomes has gotten calls all year, you haven't been watching the games. Does Mahomes get calls? Yes. Stars get calls. Okay. Absolutely. Did Jordan get calls? Yes. Jordan got star calls. Did Brady get calls? Sure. Now let's also remember quarterbacks get calls.
Yeah.
You could find every single quarterback in this league a situation where they got a little hand on the elbow and they got a 15-yard roughing call, right? I mean, you can find it with all of them. Does it seem like Mahomes gets some more? Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. But I think that there is a superstar element to that and a benefit of the doubt element to that. There's a benefit of the doubt for great teams versus no benefit of the doubt for a terrible team. I mean, that's human. That's human stuff.
Well,
there's refs in basketball that are that deep down, they don't want to get screamed at on a block charge, and they go with the home team more often. I mean, that stuff happens. That's real human reaction.
Well, and Mahomes, I will say, I think has become a master at using the rules to his advantage, right? Like you'll see him run along the sideline, and it looks like he's about to tiptoe out of bounds, and defenders start to pull up. And then he'll go get another 4 yards before he gets out of bounds. Like you'll see him, you did it earlier in the playoffs on the sideline where he does the flop. Like I think officials with not just him, but with everybody need to be more aware at the quarterback position of them taking advantage of some of this stuff and not allowing that to happen.
He's not the only one who does that, but he is the one. I think it's him taking advantage of the rules.
Exactly.
And frankly, that's BS. And that's something that they need to address. Keith says people need to realize it's not the refs helping Kansas City. It's just they're good enough to play in every big game. So you're going to see them more than the other team. So it's going to feel like they're being helped. I think that's definitely part of this, Keith.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get to more of your thoughts on this coming next. Plus, one thing that as a result of all of this, Joe, I'm interested to see if it impacts the game on Sunday. I'll give you my my thoughts on that coming up as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Discussing the Chiefs, the NFL, and officiating. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Dustin in Hopkinsville. Dustin, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. So first off, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm a lowly Titans fan. Woo! But I agree with you guys on this. Like, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league right now. He arguably right now is going to be better than Tom Brady. He's more of an athlete, and he's got it between the ears, and I truly believe that Andy Reid's a better coach, and it helps him. But when you are the best and you are a quarterback as well, you are going to get those calls a lot. I always say, you know, I try to keep the refs out of it. I always say you got to beat the refs too. And so Patrick Mahomes, lost my train of thought here. Crap.
The refs have infiltrated Dustin from Hopkinsville. They won't let him talk.
Well, hey, I was going to say
Roger
this.
Goodell.
The refs tried to give that game away, but between the Cats and the Balls, they were trying to give y'all that game. I just should have taken a little shot.
Thank you.
But the Cats are looking pretty rough now, so y'all go ahead and take shots back.
Thank you,
But
Dustin.
yeah, Patrick Mahomes, man, he's the best. You're going to get those calls. To think these refs are out here giving away games, man, that just means somebody else wins money when the other doesn't. I mean, it's just crazy to think that.
Yep. Thanks for the
See
call,
y'all
Dustin.
later.
Appreciate it. So here's one thing that I wonder about now, Joe. It's a couple of people have brought this up on the text line before we've even talked about it. You know, we see this happen in sports a lot, right? It's called working the officials, right? Like, and you know, sometimes whether it's a coach in the media, a coach on the sideline, you know, basketball, hockey, whatever sport you want to talk about, they'll work the officials to the point where if you yell about something enough, does it make them more or less likely to make the call later on, right? Like we see this happen in sports all the time. It shouldn't be that way, but we are dealing with humans here. I do wonder, like with all the conversation around this, Joe, and with this being such a big talking point this week and the commissioners getting asked about it, and now the NFL Referees Union is releasing a statement, like when the game comes around on Sunday, are the officials going to be a little bit more gun shy to make a call, either in favor of Kansas City or to not throw a flag when one needs to be thrown in favor of Kansas City? It shouldn't be that way. If I'm an official, like you just officiate what you see in front of you and you try to do the best job you can and you hope that you don't screw something up. But there is a human element to this that I think is going to be pretty interesting to see on Sunday. Like, are they more gun shy to throw a flag, you know, on a tight call if it's going to benefit Kansas City?
It's a good question. Another real actual part of this in real life is that working the officials is a real thing, right?
Exactly.
And again, I mean, I think of this in basketball terms a lot, you know. I mean, these coaches, seriously, they just screaming at them back and forth. And some of them I think are intimidating, and sometimes I think it gets you a call. But it happens in football too. This is like an entire world working the officials in favor of the Eagles in advance. I don't know if it'll work, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm with you. It's like, gosh, you wonder if there is like a 50-50 call, and maybe it's really should go toward the Chiefs and it goes the other way. I don't know. But I do know, you know, Ben in Cumberland City, frequent texter says it's ignorant to have the argument that the refs aren't biased. There's video freaking evidence. Come on, man. And so I asked him, is it because the league tells them to be? He says, I didn't say that. They're biased, though. Mahomes gets away more ticky-tack calls in many cases game-changing. Every poll I've seen points to this Super Bowl generating less excitement than others in recent memory. Tell me why. Well, Ben, that may be part of it. And also, if you're the NFL, why would you want that?
Well, exactly. And look, we'll see what the ratings end up being. My guess is it's going to be gigantic between Kansas City and Philadelphia. Look, I will say personally, I've said this. I am way less excited about this matchup. It has nothing to do with the officials. I'm just tired of Kansas City. That's what it is for me. I think there is fatigue that naturally happens, and it happened with the Patriots. It's happened in other sports, like your beloved Golden State Warriors. After about the 12th time they were in the finals, I was like, good Lord, can we get another final matchup? other than Cleveland and Golden State. Like, they went through that run where it is with, like, I just think that naturally happens in sports where people get tired of seeing the same thing. I don't think it has anything to do with the officials.
Well, some people it may, but again, I just like people. This is not a conspiracy for the Chiefs. There is absolutely no logic to it whatsoever. And again, if you're the NFL and it turns out that you're actually pro wrestling, well, you'll still have some fans, but I promise you that your product will lose a ton of value. Why is that smart? Why, again, like I hear still like, well, the NFL wanted because of the Josh Dobbs fumble thing. They screw up that call all the time. They're inconsistent and subjective. It's a problem. But still,
Jacksonville's big market. Jacksonville, they wanted Jacksonville in there.
Just in Stilly's mind, the NFL wanted Trevor Lawrence against, huge. I mean, that was a huge moment for the NFL to have Trevor Lawrence against Justin Herbert in the first round of the playoffs. Big, of course. Roger Goodell just pushes it over. Let's call that one a fumble. Beep, 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 beep it into the refs. Again, can we not wear tinfoil hats?
Well, look, some of this just boils down to there are at times some referee officiating incompetence out there, right? Like, I don't buy that it was some conspiracy between Kansas City and Buffalo, but I do wonder, like, how you could miss that call when I think it was clearly a first down. Like, how can you be that bad? And this also gets back to a conversation, Joe, of like some of these other sports have technology to know exactly where the football is or their ball is at all times. I realize the football is a different shaped object, and Roger Goodell has asked about that this week too. Like, how close are we to technology where you can put a chip in the ball and you can see whether or not they picked up a first down? And he talked about how, they're working on stuff like that. So at some point that's probably going to happen here, but some of it just boils down to you have refs out there that are missing calls and blowing calls that they should not be blowing. And unfortunately, it's happening on some big stages.
Imagine how much faster these games would be if you just have a chip in the ball. The line is where it is. You have it just like tennis, and it's just like beep, 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 first down, move the chains or not. You never have a measurement. It's just there's no review. Spot reviews are just ridiculous. And you know what? On that call, I'd like to know why that one official was where he was. It was ridiculous. See, that's what I'm talking about. We want to talk about individuals. They need to be held accountable. They need to be paid well enough. This needs to be their only job. They need to be held accountable, and they need to answer questions after games. So there's a transparency and accountability piece that is missing from officiating in major sports too. Texture says Mahomes does have the most overturned interceptions by quite a bit. I've heard that stat. Here's what I'll theorize on that. Have you seen Patrick Mahomes play? I bet you when he throws picks, a lot of times it's because somebody mugged his receiver. Could be me, but I think
what does overturned pick
mean
amazing. Too? Does it because he drew somebody offside and he got a free play? Like, what is the stat? Kind of, I'd have to have more detail on what that stat looks like.
Anything counts in that. Yes, that does. A PI does. Defensive holding, whatever it is. I mean, I think you can probably correlate that a little bit with his performance as a quarterback.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, the tennis example is my favorite one because it's like 3 seconds in and out. And you're not going to – I love it when people are like, oh, Vegas knows. Ha, 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 Vegas knows. That's BS, dude. Like, there's something to it. Like, they want to have some type of control over that. It's not tinfoil hat, Joe. Like, I disagree with you on that. Like, I had an uncle, super tinfoil hat guy. Like, he's like, they know exactly. These kickers can hit them, every single time if they want to. It's not quite
that's
that.
Stupid.
But I do think there's an element. There's an element to it that it's like, dude, you can't ignore some of this. Like, yeah, absolutely, we have the tech, and it'd be easy to be like, okay, we know if he got a first down or not, but they want to have some type of control over that. Like, I fully believe the league wants to have some type of control. Not to the point where Jared is, but I am to the point where it's like they want to be able to control some part of it, and that's it. That's why they won't change that.
Thank you for the call, Adam. Joe, your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't even know what to say. So the NFL doesn't want to have better technology and stuff. Then why not get rid of replay? If you get rid of replay, then you can just make whatever call you want, and you never have to let people. It's just, sorry, that was the call. That's how it used to be. Why would we ever go to that tech? I mean, come on, man.
Paul Kuharsky is with us now on the program as well. We'll get PK's
I'll
thoughts
fix this conversation
on all this
in a minute. Just be
coming up
patient.
next. He's going to fix the conversation. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com PK.com/get-it-all. Paul Kuharsky with us on the program. PK, good morning. How we
Good
doing?
morning, boys. Joe, you just took too long in that conversation about officiating to get to, the perception is reality part and to get to those spots just being bad calls. No, there's not a conspiracy, but there are a lot of bad calls and they're going in the Chiefs' direction. And so people, that's where the conspiracy fuel comes from. The problem is people like Adam Schefter, mainstream people who are not just tied in by the league, but are, nearly on the league's payroll, are fueling it by tweeting out, penalty statistics and stuff like that. So where perception is reality, it's getting fueled by mainstream people, which is dangerous territory. All these fringe people who are becoming mainstream people now, fan-wise, are opening up their Twitter and seeing Adam Schefter saying it and going, see? That's the dangerous territory to me. But those two spots in the Buffalo game are horrific calls that give people reason
Third and fourth down,
think this stuff. I'm sympathetic to these people who are watching this and over feeling like there's stuff going on. The league has a problem there. It's not a conspiracy problem. It's a bad officiating problem.
That was a quick point. You're right. Now tell me, PK, help me out on Schefter. What exactly did Schefter say or tweet?
Well, Schefter, before the championship games, tweeted that the league may use the ref in the ear function a little more liberally going forward on things like hits to a running quarterback and stuff like that, and then followed it up with like retweeting people's some beat reporter stats maybe on here are the penalties called for and against the Chiefs in the playoffs over the last 5 years or whatever, which are incredibly skewed.
And by the way, then got on, like, I think it was McAfee a few days later and said, well, I was just throwing that out there. Like, there was no agenda at all. Like, I was just putting it out there. It's like, okay.
I mean, that's bad form by him. He's basically endorsing the conspiracy theory talk by trumpeting those numbers.
By the way, Schefter's a lifelong Bills fan who still says that the Titans
was backward.
Was a forward pass.
The lateral was
it's
forward.
Like, hey, idiot. Like, it's actually been scientifically demonstrated that that's not true.
He's your guy.
Yeah, he's my guy. Yeah.
I'm a Pelissero guy. We all know that.
They're best friends now.
I've never made a sweet omelet for Schefter.
That's good to know.
Would you like more mushrooms in that?
Well, here's the thing about the spotting of the football, and people think the chip thing can solve it. I mean, somebody still has to say at what moment is forward progress stopped. So there's going to be a human element in it. But the league's nonchalance about everything is fine, there's nothing to see here, is the ridiculous thing. And you thought that, first off, it's really dumb for the officials to put out a statement.
Yeah.
Like, if there's nothing to see here, then just go about your business. Putting out a statement.
See, I disagree. I think you just contradicted yourself because any sort of acknowledgement of disdain with officiating to me is a positive step, because the nothing to see here and just, we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk. You can't talk to us. You can send one pool reporter and ask one question. No. I mean, at least acknowledge that people are talking about it. I think it's better than nothing, man.
I think it was a massive failure.
Way more transparency.
Massive failure by beat people to not have a pool report off of that game. And I know people say, well, the pool report doesn't get you anything. It gets an official to speak. Whether he says dumb stuff, you can do. That's right. And that, I don't know how. I mean, they should have asked about the third down play. They should have asked about the fourth down spot. I think that gives teams, by the way, when you see the official from the top of the screen coming down and he has to walk around a player, if I'm a coach watching that, I'm going to say, hey, if you're the widest player there, linger at the line of scrimmage to make the official walk around you to potentially lose his line on the spot. There are all kinds of things you can be doing now to muddy up already super muddy process. But the fact of the matter is the public has lost complete faith in officiating, and that's a huge problem. And if you had a problem with somebody asking Goodell a straightforward question about this, I don't know if you saw the stuff from media night.
Yeah.
But did you hear those questions?
It's coming next segment. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's that we'll get to. Here's I think another big factor in all this that we have to keep in mind. What Kansas City's doing right now in some ways is borderline unbelievable. The stat that really I think highlights it to me is they've won 17 one-score games in a row. 17 in a league where that tends to come back to the mean. Like the Titans forever were really, really good in those close games, and Vrabel had a knack for it until he didn't, and it started to come back the other way.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't come back the other way for Kansas City. 17 in a row is what they put out there, including 12 this season. It's unbelievable what they've done from that area.
I wonder about this in terms of Mahomes and the way he negotiates the sideline. Remember Patrick Ewing, was it against Houston? I don't remember who it was against at Georgetown, where in the first 5 minutes of the
all the
goaltending, and he just
yeah.
made it clear, like, you come in here and I don't care whether it's going in or not, and it set a tone for that game.
I totally agree. Yep,
Well,
I know where you're going.
I don't know if you do that to give up the yardage against Mahomes on the sideline where you just blast him. But what if you talked about it all week?
Yeah.
Hey, we're not going to do his dance on the sideline. If there's any doubt that Patrick Mahomes is going out of bounds, we're going to bury him.
Yeah.
And we'll take the consequences. And if the referees want to mess around with that, well, that's on the referees. And if he gets hurt, that's on the referees. And we're going to be a little Buddy Ryan-esque right here on that, and talk about it all week and put it in his head and put it in their head and get them distracted, and then get Chris Jones talking about, well, if they do that, we're going to go and put something in their head. Then what you do on Sunday leaves it up to Sunday. But then doesn't that make Mahomes maybe a little more hesitant about dancing the sidelines? You make it an issue ahead of the game.
I think it's worth 15 yards to hit him. I mean, look,
I do too.
first of all, he is a runner at that point. So, yes, I understand he's a quarterback, and obviously he's Patrick Mahomes, so he's even more protected. He's a runner. And to me, if you hit him in bounds, now I'm not saying you're trying to hurt the guy, but give him a legit hit.
Level him.
And make the referee, because if he's in bounds and he is now a runner on the play, he's not a quarterback in the pocket, that should be legal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
level him, turn to the referee, say, I'm sorry, he's in bounds, sir, and we're going to keep doing that. Tell him to get out.
Well, and Mahomes is inviting that to himself because, he's trying to take advantage of the rules, and he's dipping around and tiptoeing along the sideline, not going out of bounds because he knows what the rules are, right? Like we talked about it, Joe, with Kenny Pickett doing the fake slide nonsense. Like there's a reason why you don't do that. It's because, you're going to get your block knocked off the next time you try to do that because people aren't convinced that you're going down. Like Brady, I know you love Tom Brady. He talks about this all the time. Like the benefit of the doubt that the quarterbacks get in the pocket's one thing. When you're running, you don't get that benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry.
And Mahomes isn't trying to get an extra yard or two. He's trying to get 15.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. And I have very little sympathy for the NFL, but I am sympathetic on this. We've seen backup quarterbacks in the league, and it is not fun to watch. And so when your guy gets knocked out, when two guys get knocked out, and all of a sudden the Sunday night football matchup is
Mason Rudolph and Tyler Huntley on Monday Night Football.
I can't even think of who Mahomes' backup is, and that's a good thing.
Carson Wentz, baby. That
you don't know who he is. But if Carson Wentz is playing in this game because they, dislocate Mahomes' shoulder with this hit we're talking about on the sideline, a point will be proven, but also the football game will go to bleep.
Although Carson Wentz against the Eagles could be fun.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No,
what a storyline.
You talked me into it.
It could be fun.
Maybe it's a conspiracy.
But I'm not against protecting quarterbacks overall.
Yeah.
And I wonder, maybe I'll find a way to write this piece. Like, what if we lived in a world where there were enough quarterbacks?
Yeah.
What if we lived in a world where there were 28 good quarterbacks? But how much fun would that be?
Yeah, exactly.
What a beautiful
615-737-1025,
world.
our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah, who is this shit doing? Yeah, Yeah, it's Shador. Right? His dad played, right? He played in the NFL? I think so.
The verbs
Can't touch
at thesaurus.com: collude, conspire,
Yeah.
cooperate, participate, and hook up.
Well-
Say you give them baby blood?
My
What kind of
blood
weirdo
saves
are you?
babies.
Oh, okay.
Saves
I
babies.
give them baby blood. What?
Yeah. What are you doing? I say babies. What are you doing?
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode.
The first thing, who is he imitating?
Mad Dog Russo. It was not you this time. It was Mad Dog Russo.
I mean, he
You
has
don't
got
like-
one
you don't-
imitation.
You don't like my Mad Dog Russo imitation, huh?
Does
Come on, I'm
sound
really
pretty
working
similar.
on this. It's really good, huh?
Dude, everybody's from Boston.
Boston. Line of Boston.
Mike Morganti imitation.
No. If it was Boston, be like, Mad Dog here, you wicked awesome. No, I'm not. No, I'm not doing Boston.
Wicked awesome. Just all you do is the same accent. You throw in wicked Boston.
Joseph,
trying
the
to
floor
You
is
really
yours.
you practice in the car. I know you don't get in the car because you don't leave your house because your kids can't regulate things going on there. I'm a proponent of you being paid 1/3 of your salary for today, at best. I mean, what are you doing?
Okay.
You're talking to your boys.
Well, I have a boy, a girl. I have a boy and a girl at home now. I have a freshman and a senior. Senior had, we don't need to get into it.
Yeah, we do.
sometimes You just have to
Your
make sure.
senior can't handle getting out of the house and going to school. What's the
Wait
parenting
early.
situation over there?
No, earlier than he needed to be. There was no reasons. You understand? Because
No.
the freshman
No, I
had
don't
something.
understand.
Okay, just shut up. Now listen.
Raise your hand out
couple
there if you
things
have
here.
a senior that's incapable of getting to school, that you have to stay home
Again,
from
it's
work.
not getting to school.
It's getting to school
getting
early.
To school
To clarify,
for no
not a
reason
senior
other
citizen.
than yes, exactly.
So
For no
you're a
reason
human
other than
alarm clock,
the
is what I'm
freshman.
hearing.
So this would be if my wife were home this week, something she would have done.
All right, let's get into this. Where is
Yeah,
she?
let's-
She was in Paris for 2 weeks, living the life. She comes home, and now she's away from you again.
Yeah, I know. Quit hijacking my rant, but I will tell you that, yes, she is away this week. You know where she is? She's staying in a hotel in downtown Nashville with her team at work, and they're just like having a good old time while we are here suffering, okay? You want to know the truth about my life, PK? I hope they had like an amazing dinner last night. You know, she texted me and she was like, the dinner was mid at this place we love in East Nashville. And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. She's like, I'm just kidding. It was freaking amazing.
Just twist that knife. I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
Just
can I-
get your kid to wake up without
Okay.
you being there.
all right.
You
I'm
can
gonna-
handle it.
And I'm going to work on my Borgonzi accent, which, by the way, may as well do this. Nick, do you have? I called Eric Mangini Chuck Mangione. Eric Mangione. There is a famous Mangione. It's
As a
Chuck
trumpet player.
Mangione. Yeah, like Nick, do you have the music for us?
Yeah, everybody knows this.
Well, our age too. I can't hear this at all. Is it playing?
It's playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's
You know when
enough.
you could hear it? If you came to work.
That's true. So, by the way, that's a very slow beginning, but once that song really gets going, it's like, bah, 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 bah. And it's, for PK
That
and
sounded
I,
like Price is Right.
yeah, it is. It is like the Price is Right. For us, as kids, in the 70s, you just bopping along the street, jamming out to some Chuck Mangione. So, thank you for that. I want to get to this. I've actually had a point, which was, and this is, I think, an annual thing, this stupid media day, but I mean, this year is especially.
It's the worst.
Yeah, and I've never. I mean, PK, I'm sure you've done
Oh, I
them
did
several
6
times,
or
right?
7, yeah.
I've never done one. I mean, obviously, you have a lot of people. It's an incredible opportunity if you're actually a media person who actually covers the NFL, because you have everybody spread out and you have everybody available. So I'm of course, some of them are going to be bleep shows, right? The stars, but I mean, you can get so much stuff, I would think, right? But I just like, what percentage of this media crowd, PK, is just complete unserious goofballs who are just there to try to get viral with their dumbass questions?
I haven't done it in a while, but I suspect it's close to half.
So here's a couple this week, which kind of goes along with our topic today.
Patrick, for your whole career, you have had so many great people help you win. So who is your favorite ref?
All the rest are great, man. All the rest are great. They do the best they can. We go out there and play the game the right way.
Is there one that you give a Christmas card to every year, possibly?
Not that I can remember. I'll have to talk to some of my teammates and we can kind of figure it out.
Travis, what do you love more, Taylor Swift or phantom 15-yard roughing the passer penalties in the playoffs?
That's a good question. Anybody else?
See, I give Mahomes credit for playing along there. Although I kind of like how Kelsey dealt with it better. It's like, yeah, okay, man. Okay. Move along, Slappy.
Yeah.
It's just, again, there are dumber questions at this thing. Cause just a reason to try to get yourself on camera to try to get something circulated, just completely off ball stuff. But this kind of ties into the stupid officiating conversation that has happened around the league too. And my God, it's doubly annoying this year.
That guy that asked the phantom penalty call is like a sports talk radio guy from Boston or Buffalo.
He's one of Stilly's heroes.
Yeah, he's basically. Stilly would have done that. That's Stilly, still Billy. I love it. I love it for this. These guys are in uncomfortable situations because the league insists on putting on a circus, and so suffer the consequences of putting on your circus.
I did enjoy the Jameis Winston questions that were flying around. Jameis Winston, maybe a career in media after all is said and done.
So I heard a lot of people complaining about him. So he actually had some funny stuff, good stuff, or was it a little bit too cringy?
It was a little bit too cringy. He was asked about the opportunity to come play for the Tennessee Titans, though. So
yeah, and people continue to think this is meaningful. Everybody that would like to play in Nashville, people think that's a headline. Oh, I'd like to play in Nashville.
It's only a couple hours from
Sign
Birmingham.
them up. They don't realize that wanting to play in Nashville is not the key to playing in Nashville. Having the Nashville people want you to play in Nashville. Yeah. That's the key to playing in Nashville.
Mike Borgard said, "Oh, good. Jameis wants to play. We can bring him in now. It's good."
Yeah. Hey, Wyatt.
How do you know
Wyatt,
doesn't want him?
Wyatt, go to the Super Bowl and ask as many guys as possible if they'd like to play in Nashville.
Then we can
come back with a list.
We can formulate our free agency plan that way. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Paul Kuharsky with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans. We'll take your questions for PK as well. 615-737-1025. Check out this week's Nashville's Best Deal. It's Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic hot chicken joint. Get half off a $25 gift card while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Gift card good for the Tanger outlets in Antioch and Inside Assembly Food Hall in downtown Nashville. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans here on Robby and Rexrode. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. PK, speaking of this media night at
Joe,
the
get closer to the camera and turn the light up.
Fix the view a little bit. There we go. Oh, that's pretty close. Pretty close. Nice
How's
close
that?
up there. That was good. DeAndre Hopkins generated some headlines the other night, talking about how he took himself out of the game as the Titans were playing Buffalo. Went and met with Rand Carthon the next day. Carthon executed the trade to Kansas City and talking about how grateful he was for all that. That's generated some reaction from Titans fans about him taking himself out of the game and the circumstances that led to the trade. I got to be honest with you. I find it really difficult to care about this. He's gone. The guy who executed the trade and brought him in is also gone, and Rand Carthon. So I think there's a lot of talk about this and very little bite to it from my perspective. What about you? What do you make of what DeAndre Hopkins had to say of him pulling himself out of the game before the trade?
I agree. I don't like him pulling himself out of the game, though. I don't remember where that game was or whatever. He said they weren't calling anything for him.
I know they were getting smoked in that game.
Yeah. So maybe they were just trying to get out of that game at that point and probably running some clock.
Was it Buffalo?
It was.
Yeah. So they probably weren't calling a lot of stuff for anybody in the pass game at that point. I don't love him pulling himself out. And look, I would like to think that was trade time. And he was one of the trading commodities that they have. I don't mind a respected veteran, letting his feelings be known. But I'd like it to be a business decision and not I know fans love this idea. Oh, get the guy to somewhere where he could win a Super Bowl and treat him right. I'm not into that at all. I'm into making a business decision, getting yourself the best price that you can. And so if the Jaguars were offering the best return, they should have traded him to the Jaguars. Now, I have no reason to believe that's the case. But in my estimation, Rand was far too concerned with being a dad or a brother or uncle figure to these guys and not concerned enough. Now, he wasn't around enough to really see the consequences of that in terms of not being a businessman with these guys because he didn't get to the end of the road with a lot of them where you get to the part where you cut them. This is a non-story to me. I don't really. I thought it was pretty clear they were going to get to a point where they needed to trade him and some others, and the office politics or friendship part of it, I don't think is anything incredibly unusual. Joseph?
Well, speaking of, no, I mean, I agree. I give Hopkins a little bit of credit for like actually saying that out loud.
Yeah.
But you're going to take crap for it, and he is, and yeah, it doesn't move the needle much for me. But you mentioned trade compensation. What are you giving? You are Mike Borgonzi. What are you giving the Cleveland Browns to get Myles Garrett to Nashville?
Can't do it. Well, first off, Myles Garrett, he doesn't control where he gets traded. But
exactly. I don't care that he wants to win a Super Bowl. Like you just said, if you're the Browns,
I don't
give a
either.
crap.
But they're going to get a better offer from a team that's a lot closer to winning. Myles Garrett, looking to get out of a bad situation. The only worse situation, according to draft order, is here. Titans would have to give up a lot, and it just goes against. Rand Carthon might have done the deal, but it goes against what Borgonzi and Brinker are saying in terms of gathering picks, drafting and developing, and being patient and slow. Guy's a franchise changer for sure. And I'm not suggesting that Abdul Carter is going to be Myles Garrett by any means. But if you're taking the path that the Tennessee Titans are taking, and I'm not saying Abdul Carter is going to be the pick, If you're choosing between what it would take to get Myles Garrett and what it would take to get Abdul Carter, especially if you could trade to 3 and get Abdul Carter, you've got to go Abdul Carter.
Well, and also,
okay, PK, put that headline, Robbie. PK says Abdul Carter better than Myles Garrett. There we go. Good analysis.
Well, here's the other thing. Like where the Titans are right now, Myles Garrett's 29. He's still a great player, and he'll probably still be a great player for the next few years. But like if you drafted Abdul Carter, you're talking about a 22-year-old at that point. Like it just the clock right now from the Titans part of this, I'm not sure it makes a ton of sense to give up what they would have to give up to go get him based on where they are with the rest of their roster right now. Like they're still a ways away, even with Myles Garrett, from being truly competitive.
You've got to try to go find your own Myles Garrett. It's a lot harder, a lot easier said than done. But, they've got to find some stars of their own instead of shopping other people's stars. It's going to be fascinating to see. But, I would bet the odds are that Myles Garrett's team is the Browns.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, look, that if you listen to them, they say that they're not going to trade him. Now we'll see how that actually works out when push comes to shove here, but that's been their stance on it. Let's head back
I think the Browns, by the way, are overcast as dysfunctional.
They got a quarterback problem.
The Deshaun Watson thing destroyed them, and that was a terrible ownership thing. But Stefanski's a good coach, and their roster is not bad.
Oh, it's pretty good.
They became dysfunctional over the Deshaun Watson thing.
Yeah.
And a failure, Flacco took him to the playoffs a year ago.
Yeah. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Ed in New Jersey. Ed, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Edward.
Good morning, gentlemen. So this assumption that L'Jarius Sneed will be back healthy and be our number one quarterback outside, I wonder if, we're underplaying or undervaluing, I should say, the relationship that he has with Bergonzi. I mean, Bergonzi traded him. Was part of the people that traded him. He didn't want to pay him the contract that he has now. Fully acknowledge circumstances are different. Casey had to pay their quarterback. We didn't. So we have more money to do that. But I just wonder if that's something we should keep an eye on and not make that assumption. He knows him full well, has a history with him, and didn't want to pay him in the first place. So I just wonder how that's going to shake out this offseason.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Ed. PK, your thoughts on the Snead part of this with Borgonzi?
Well, Andy Reid couldn't say enough good things about Snead. Now I know he's on his way out the door and all of that, but Kansas City loved Snead. Now got out from under him early instead of late, which is what good teams do. But I mean, what are they going to do? His trade value is low. He's coming off a serious injury. They're not going to be able to get a third for a guy they gave up a third. So their path with Snead is pretty much dictated by the situation. He's got to go into camp. You're looking for him to be your number one corner. You're hoping that he's healthy, and you don't have many alternatives with that. What are you going to do? Flip a guy that you gave a third up for a fifth or a sixth? It's not.
Well, since Borgonzi is the one who got the draft pick, does it count the other way for him? I'm sure he was like last year. He was like, wow, good thing I don't have to worry about him being healthy anymore. Now it's like, oh, now I have to worry about him being healthy again.
Yeah.
But like at this point, like you just got to hope he's healthy. Like that's the strategy for the Titans right now, because you're not moving him. Like to PK's point, like you're not getting anything for him right now. So you have to hope that whatever the issues were with him this year, with basically a year off, that he's healthy and ready to go next year.
You hope. You hope it's a freak year, and you hope you can get 2 years out of him now.
Yeah.
I would imagine his new guaranteed money is over after this year. I don't have the contract in front of me.
If you get Snead for a full year, let alone 2, at like 80% of what he was in Kansas City, that does not justify at all the trade or anything like that, but it's like there's value in that. There's definite value in that.
Well, and there's nothing you can do about the trade now. Like the trade's done. The guy who made it's gone. So, or at least part of who made it is gone. So we'll see if he can get on the field this year. I mean, same thing with Awuzie, right? Like they just were not on the field together this past year. So if they can get on the field together for a substantial period of time next year, how good can the secondary be? It's a lot of hoping. I realize that.
Now, Borgonzi's thing related to this is that third I helped the Titans give up. I need to help the Titans get back.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More coming up next with Paul Kuharsky. Take your thoughts on our text line. Preds fans, don't miss Smashville Live tonight at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. Player guests are Justin Barron and Nick Blankenberg. That's tonight at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue starting at 6 o'clock. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Duncan fans, come experience the new age of the grand opening of the new Duncan location in Brentwood, 4930 Thoroughbred Lane this Friday. Duncan will be giving away 100 days of free coffee to the first 100 guests in line starting at 8 a.m. Plus, Robby and Rexrode will be out there broadcasting live from 6 to 9 a.m. We'll have Preds tickets to give away as well. So looking forward to seeing everybody out there on Friday. Paul Kuharsky with us here on the program, taking your questions on the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number. PK, a lot of conversation as we continue to inch, and I stress inch, closer to the NFL draft over the next couple of months here, about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. A lot of conversation about that at the Super Bowl this week. And quite frankly, most of what I'm seeing, hearing, reading is continuing to illustrate, I think, further and further that a lot of people view these two guys as not worthy of the number one overall pick. I've seen a lot of Shedeur Sanders doesn't have a first round grade. A lot of people talking about how they don't believe he's a first round quarterback. Cam Ward, not as many saying that he's not a first round quarterback, but very few that I've found that consider him to be worthy of the number one overall pick. Now, it doesn't mean somebody won't take him. Doesn't mean the Titans won't take him, but what do you make of the conversation around the quarterbacks right now, specifically those two, and how that relates to what the Titans could end up deciding to do with the number one overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, that really is the widespread buzz, though. Pete Thamel said from the Senior Bowl, you know, the growing buzz was that Ward would be the guy. Now he's coming largely from the college side,
yep.
Obviously. Ben Kirk, the former quarterback, said, you know, he's got a source telling him that Titans people like it. I think all of it. I wrote a piece on Monday just saying it's ridiculous to think that the Titans have any conclusion at this stage. They haven't met Cam Ward yet, right? Their Southeastern scout probably has a really good feel for Cam Ward. Everybody else, you know, to varying degrees, has a film feeling on him. But Borgonzi's coming from a team. He's been on a job like 18 days. He's got a feeling, but he coming from a team where maybe he was looking at the quarterbacks a little bit, anticipating that maybe I get a job with a team that needs a quarterback, but he had a full-time job with a team that did not need a quarterback. So Brinker maybe has a good feel. Callahan, you know, just started looking at these guys. The idea that they've got some firm opinion where they just met Sanders and they aren't meeting Cam Ward until like, I think Miami hasn't publicized its pro day, but I think it's March 23rd. So, a ways away still. Combine, they won't meet him for 3 weeks. It's just crazy to think that they formulated any strong opinion. And it's crazy to think that, you know, the film alone is going to do anything for them without having met him.
Do you know the start of free agency date, PK?
No, mid-March. Whenever Ravenwood High School is on spring break, that is when free agency starts.
March 12th.
Automatically.
So, you know, that's because obviously the pro day can be critical information, but also the Titans may have, by the time they get to pro day for Cam Ward, they may have a starting quarterback for next
Here's
year.
my question for you, though. Who is the starting quarterback they could sign or even deal for that would eliminate the possibility of them, in the eyes of the league, drafting a quarterback?
Well, we talked about this this week already. I mean, to me, the three quarterbacks, and again, how they acquire them, we don't know. We don't know what Minnesota's going to do, but it would be Darnold, Stafford, and to me, Rodgers, only because, you know, to me, Rodgers is a guy who's like needs to be the guy. But those would be the three. If you drafted one of those three, or not drafted, if you acquired one of those three players, then to me that tells me you are doing something other than quarterback in this draft. Anybody else, you could do both.
I think
I would eliminate Rodgers from that, by the way.
I think, and I think this is Atlanta did the whole league a favor where, and I know Penix wasn't number one, but I don't think there's anybody available that automatically takes quarterback off the board if you loved Ward.
I mean, PK, if you either sign because he's free agent or you make a deal, which means you're giving up something of value for Sam Darnold, you still think that then you might draft one of these guys at the very top of the draft when your roster is complete garbage?
Yeah.
No, you have to get a player.
Sam Darnold, I guess you would be signing as a long-term guy. So maybe Sam Darnold, but Stafford to me at 36, and I love Stafford. Stafford would absolutely be my first choice with a big gap between Stafford and anybody else. But I think if you're getting Stafford, you're giving up some kind of decent draft capital, and I don't think they want to give up draft capital. So I think it's highly unlikely he's the guy. But a ideal Stafford thing is he's your quarterback this year. I don't care what's behind him. Next year, he'd be in front of a rookie, and the third year he'd be probably gone. But outside of that, and I think the Darnold stock is down. Who was your third one? Rodgers. Yeah, I can't see Rodgers happening. But Rodgers would definitely play this year, but I could see you sitting a rookie behind him. I don't like the idea of not having your first round pick be a factor for your team. But so I punch a hole in all three. I don't think they're getting Stafford because of the cost. I don't think they're taking Rodgers because of the headache. And I don't think you can forecast Darnold as a long-term guy. So I'd scratch all three. You go to the next one, and there's no reason not to draft a quarterback to go with him because he's unreliable. The next one being Carr or Cousins.
Which then leads to the question of what happens if you don't like any of these quarterbacks in the draft and you're not getting Stafford or Rodgers in free agency, and you can't get Darnold because he's tagged and he either stays or is traded elsewhere in Minnesota. Like, not great options out there in the quarterback hunt for the Tennessee Titans right now.
Here's the other thing. People don't necessarily have to believe you're taking a quarterback at one. They have to worry about other people coming up to take a quarterback at one that's not you.
Right. Exactly. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll have more with PK coming up next. Take more of your questions on the Titans. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts for PK on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. By the way, got some wristbands to give away. A 4-pack of wristbands to the National Wild Turkey Federation Sports Show coming up at the Opryland Convention Center Thursday, February 13th through Saturday, February 15th. It's awesome. I've been. You're going to want to go.
There will be some traffic.
There will be.
There. That's the thing is, if you don't know that's going on and you're like, hey, I'm going to go shop, and you stumble into that.
Could be rough.
Man, I've done that before for events like that. And I'm like, oh, man.
Be caller 5. You'll win a wristband. A 4-pack of wristbands to the National Wild Turkey Federation, 615-737-1025. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Kenston to the program. Kenston, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, guys. I want to call and say I just subscribed last week to PK site. Love the site. Love the work that you did with James Foster. Been following him for 4 years now, so definitely hold his opinion with football stuff in high regard.
Thank you very much. James Foster debuts this morning with the Shador and Cam Ward piece. Check it out at paulkuharski.com.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great piece, man. Like I said, James has been great for about 4 years now. He's up there with Brugler and those guys for me. The question is, so many people are either or, vet QB or rookie QB, and if you go vet, trade to pick. But I want to ask, do you think that two things can happen at the same time? That I'm looking at a guy not like Darnold, because I don't think lightning's going to strike twice with him. I will be very wary with him. But with a guy that has history with Callahan that's likely to be cut in Derek Carr, and you get him, but you also keep the pick and take Ward, kind of like a Kirk Cousins Penix situation. You have your guy now, you have your guy for the future, and what the possibilities of that would look like going forward. Yeah, you wouldn't get the draft capital from trading, but you would have the satisfaction of knowing that you have a top-of-the-line guy that even if all these guys who are saying that these guys aren't ready, and I don't want to believe it, but if all the guys who get paid money to know this stuff are saying the same thing, you got to kind of take that into consideration. What do you guys think about that? Eager to know. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
So he's asking about both.
Yeah.
Like doing both. The thing about doing both is, it's awfully hard to start the veteran and look at your number one pick as a non-contributor. And then you've got that veteran on the field and you're looking at some other position. Right tackle is not as good as it could have been because you spent the pick on the quarterback.
Edge rusher.
Right?
Yep.
Or you've spent money on that quarterback that you could have spent on something else. So it's a difficult thing to do. On the other hand, you say, well, it's quarterback. You got to do everything you can at quarterback. But look at where Atlanta is. Atlanta's the primo example. I mean, they spent a fortune on Kirk Cousins. Too much. I don't know what drove the market on Kirk Cousins and who else was bidding. Joe, you're like Kirk Cousins' patron saint. You can contextualize what the bidding was there for them to give him the contract they gave him. But then they draft Penix, 10, 11,
overall.
12,
Yep.
8th.
Yep.
And, Kirk Cousins could have used more around him before he got benched. And then once he's benched, now they're in a eat a number situation.
Hey, Nick, make sure you clip that up. Robby just said edge rusher. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to reading a depth chart at some point. We can put it in our show intro.
Punt
Edge rusher,
returner.
right tackle, long snapper. Good stuff.
So on the quarterback thing, first of all, I've already said I don't trust any quarterback in this draft, so I'm out. But I don't like that plan even more.
The double?
Yeah, yes, of course that can work, but I think if you do that, man, you better really do some work in free agency to fix your team so that you're not like an embarrassment on a weekly basis and just getting handled like you did last year. This team has so many needs. So if you actually believe in one of those quarterbacks in the draft, just do that then. And and I don't know what you do at the beginning of next year. I mean, I think either of those guys could potentially be day one starters. It happens. If not, somebody on the text line is asking PK about, do you think it ends up still coming back around to the Titans keeping Levis, or it could be, it could be one of these other just lesser, bridge guys like a Jameis or something like that to caretake the position for a month. But if you believe in those in one of these quarterbacks, do that, and then start to try to partially fix your incredibly flawed roster.
Well, I agree with that. How do we feel about later quarterbacks? I'm out on anything. If it's not one of these two guys, and I think it won't be one of these two guys, or I think it shouldn't be one of these two guys,
No.
certainly not that high. But these other guys, Dart and Milroe and the Syracuse kid and all, I'm not interested in a second-round quarterback. I sure as hell am not interested in a fourth-round quarterback. They just don't work. I mean, Joe, I'm with you on like, bet against the first rounder. The bet against the fourth rounder can't be, bigger.
No, I agree with that. I think another factor in the both conversation is how much money are you paying the veteran quarterback? Like, who's the quarterback that's coming in, and what's the money look like? Because I think there's a difference, right?
Long?
Between it's one thing if Stafford's coming in, like he's going to make a pretty hefty amount of money. Like if you went and got Darnold, first off, the Darnold part of it's different because I do think it would have to be a longer term answer. If it's Justin Fields as your quarterback, you're probably getting him pretty cheap. Like you could do the Justin Fields start for however long until you feel like a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders was ready. But I think there's a difference also in the money that you would have to allocate for some of these guys to bring them in as your start, and how that influences the resources that you're then able to use for the rest of the roster.
And to Texter's point, we got to get over this. Keep Will Levis is on the roster next year. I don't really have much doubt about that.
I don't know. Like,
is he playing?
Is he on the roster?
Well, he's on the roster.
Quarterback?
He's on the roster through camp. Then it's a 3 quarterback question, maybe. But dumping a second round pick in year 3 is really something. When quarterbacks are a commodity, when Malik Willis has come back to bite you in the ass, that's dangerous.
Yeah, I threw out there, look, is it possible you're a team in this league and you just absolutely love Kyle McCord and you look around and you do your homework and you're like, guys, we can get him in the 3rd. Like no one else is on him. Then fine. But when the Titans took both of these last 2 guys, they were taking flyers on them, right? And if they loved him that much, they wouldn't have taken him. So the taking the flyer because, well, okay, I guess he's at the top of the board. Again, especially when you're this limited and you're this in dire need of good football players all over the field, hell no.
Yeah, and that 3rd that you're taking a flyer on him with belongs to Kansas City.
Exactly. And again, right. It's one thing also when you don't have a quarterback, but they did this with Tannehill too, right? Like you took a 3rd round pick on a guy that you're taking a flyer on and a 2nd round pick on Will Levis. And those could have been roster players that helped your team at that time as well. And now you've gone with 2 quarterbacks that didn't ultimately end up giving you that much. And look, I have no idea who they could have drafted beyond those 2 guys, but if you drafted a couple of starters there, how much different is your team right now? Like it's what there's so many
you're
holes.
Less desperate somewhere.
Yeah, like there's so many holes
completely bombed
right now that it's a tough sell for me to go the veteran and drafting the quarterback number 1. Like to me, if you're drafting one of these quarterbacks at number 1, they probably need to play next year. Yeah.
So we did the math, right? We did this like last week or the week before. I went through all the first round quarterbacks. The Super Bowl era? Is that what I did, Robby?
Yes.
Right? Super Bowl era. And so basically it came out to 20%, 1 in 5 worked out to some extent. It's way less than 20% because I heard somebody, I think I heard Trevor Maddich was still saying, yeah, he's top of the court. These first round quarterbacks is 50-50. No, it's 20-80. And the 20 is still, the 2/3 of that is still not what you hope, but good, right? And the thing about the whole quarterback discussion is every year now, this is a positive development for a team in the Titans situation. Every year, there's so much more quarterback movement and so many possible opportunities. I understand if you get decent next year, now you're not at the top of the draft and maybe Arch is amazing or whatever, and you can't get there. But there are different ways to address it, more different ways to address it year to year, to me, which should which should dissuade teams from making well, God, we had to have a quarterback. Let's tuck ourselves into Shedeur Sanders and just do it. It should. I don't know that it will.
No, I agree. And I mean, look, you went further back. Just look at the last 10 years. I think there were 8 number 1 quarterbacks. Burrow, the slam dunk. Second slam dunk in that group, Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't been good.
Yep.
Who's the second best of that bunch? Might be Baker Mayfield, who's had 9 coordinator going into the 9th coordinator in 9 years. He didn't do it for his first team, which was a dysfunctional team. I mean, it's not a good list. It's not a good list. And that's first pick in the draft, first choice.
Right.
You
That's the clear number 1, not like this year when it's like, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're forcing it. It's your quarterback taxing yourself.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More coming up next with PK. More of your questions to get to on the Titans. We'll get into some Hall of Fame stuff with PK as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. PK is with us here on the program. PK, the Hall of Fame class being announced, I believe, tomorrow night at the NFL Honors Show. You're obviously involved with the Hall of Fame. What can you tell us about the Hall of Fame crop this year?
Well, the only thing I will miss about Super Bowl week is being at this and talking to these guys after. So a completely different thing this year. They revised the process. So I know the 7. So we used to vote from 15 modern to 10 to 5. And then you could presume those 5 got in because you had to vote thumbs up or thumbs down for them to get 80%. They changed that. So we voted from 15 to 10 to 7. Then you could vote for 5 of those 7, but only the ones that get 80% from that vote from 7 to 5 make it.
Yeah.
So it could be as few as 3, as many as 5. That make it out of that class. This class with first-time people, including Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, Adam Vinatieri. And then the seniors coach and contributors, that's 5 people total, 3 seniors. Mike Holmgren is the coach, Ralph Hay as the contributor. Same thing. Vote for 3 of the 5, and the ones that get 80% get in. And again, we don't know. There've been leaks that are infuriating to the Hall of Fame and infuriating to those of us that abide by the thing. And so we don't know. We used to walk out having a feel for who was in or knowing who was in. We don't now. Hopefully it holds until these guys are on stage tomorrow night, and we'll find out. But a different process. So it could be they wanted to make it harder, and it definitely is harder. But I think there'll be some surprises for sure.
For the record, that's Luke Kuechly, I believe.
Kuechly, what did I say?
I mean, he's almost a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying.
What did I say?
Give the guy his respect.
What did he say?
Kuechly?
Kuechly?
Yeah. Forgive me.
We'll go Kuechly.
It's fine. Yes, it's Kuechly.
I'm sure you
good
never,
player.
Very good
player.
In all your hours on the radio during the course of the week, you never mispronounce anybody's name.
I mean, he did on this very show called Eric Mangione. Eric Mangione. So there is that.
Yeah.
The famous, the Jets in that Eric Mangione era, I tell you.
Did your kids, as you got them off to school, take their instruments for orchestra practice?
I should have been more hardline about them playing instruments.
My kid is
your kid play instruments?
No, but he's put in to take a guitar class next year.
Oh, okay.
But
Nice.
who knows what they get? Getting into classes at Ravenwood High School is like getting into classes at I don't know, the toughest, most crowded college. And
they offer more stuff at these high schools now than they did when I was in high school. We didn't have any of that.
They have
like
majors now.
They have
They
a
have
major in
majors.
high school. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah,
a
it is.
major
It's
in high school.
It's pretty weird.
What's your daughter majoring in?
I
Yeah.
don't
He'll check with his wife.
I think.
Hey, check with your wife at her downtown hotel where she's escaped you
Yeah,
after
exactly.
2 weeks in Paris.
Hey, after room service comes in, honey, can you let me know what the kids are doing today? Speaking of that, who is poaching Pelicero's eggs this week if you're not down there?
That's a good question.
It wasn't at the Super Bowl first.
the
It
owners'
was at
meeting.
the owners' meetings, and I didn't poach any eggs. We were in line together, being served eggs by others.
Are these fluffy enough, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah.
Al is reminding on the text line of Skiatica. There's a slight mispronunciation.
You trying to say sciatica? Okay.
Does that doesn't mean,
I mean, that's an all time.
that doesn't
Somebody
mean
asked
you
if that was a
can't
Finnish
correct
goaltender.
others, right?
Skiatica. Yeah. Good stuff.
No, we're all in the business of correcting each other. It's what makes it fun. For the Pelissero thing, I slammed him in this line. I was like, "You're so soft that you block me for mocking your sources," and I shamed him into unblocking me. And you've turned this into me fluffing his eggs.
And you said, "Thank you, Tom. Little more pepper."
Yeah, yeah.
Paprika,
Because we all know
Paprika.
if of everybody we know, the guy who sucks up to national NFL people is me. Yeah.
it is.
I love him. I never call him out for anything.
It's just how things have gone around here.
Are we
We're,
still doing the question of the day for PK? Have we stopped doing that?
we have for the
Did
moment.
we
But if
start
anybody
doing
would
that?
like to, pony up there, we could restart it.
Okay, how about Wes from Hermitage? He says, PK, I think Dart's the best QB in this draft,
Oh,
and the Titans have a chance to get him and Carter.
SEC. Yeah. Shouldn't the college playoffs have quieted you people down?
Well, he wasn't
Wow.
in them.
That's the point.
No, yeah, no.
I know.
Yeah, and
But he
everybody
didn't do
who
anything
was
to hurt
and everybody who was in them laid down like dogs.
PK, enjoy the Super Bowl this Sunday, of which I still have no interest in, but I hope you do.
Yeah, this thing you have no interest. What are you going to
I
do
don't.
on Sunday afternoon?
I will be at walking around Disney World while it's
Oh,
happening. So that's what I'll be doing.
Some odd scheduling.
Teacups.
Odd scheduling. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Joe, I hope everything's in order over there. Now that your kids are at school, you can get back to Indiana football.
There you go.
Thanks, sweetheart.
That does it for us today on the program. Chasing Big Joe. Coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.